And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Wednesday, June 12th. Game 3 of the NBA Finals. The Boston Celtics are 2.5-point underdogs in Dallas. 212.5 total. Boston leads the series 2-0. I am Josh Engleman, here to break it all down. We're going to talk Game 3. We're going to talk promos. And we're going to talk what's on the screen right now. It just came out over the last 15 minutes. Jerry West has passed away at the age of 86. He is the logo of the NBA, one of the most respected, if not the most respected front office mind over the past 25, 30 years. This is a guy that has changed the outlook of multiple teams after joining each front office. Obviously, legendary player. Sad, man. Sad. It's very sad. Just popped up now. The logo, dude. Look at that. Look at that right there. Also, for those of you that think that the older generation would even sniff competing with the new generation, I love Jerry West. Man, is that logo boring. Oh, he's just like casually dribbling by somebody. You imagine, like, I think everybody in the world thinks that the NBA logo should probably be the Jumpman logo. But man, they made a logo out of like just dribbling with your left hand was the most entertaining thing that the NBA had back in the day. And that's why it's not anything cooler. There were no threes. People weren't really dunking. So the coolest thing that anybody could do in a basketball game was like, hey, man, I thought of this new thing where I'm going to dribble with my other hand. And some guys were like, no, I can't be dribbling with my other hand. Jerry West, though, was the trendsetter, dribbled with the opposite hand. Andrew Davison, let's put that up on the screen. Let's talk about that. Toro saved my night. It's almost as if somebody gave that out. I wonder who that was. Was it this guy? It was me. It was me. Abraham Toro with the dinger yesterday at 10-1. You love to see it. Alrighty, folks, let's talk a little bit of basketball here. Let's get into it if we can. Woo! I ran my crunch, or I ran my sims. I ran the top 50 stochastic sims as well. I'm going to make a few manual adjustments to that. And then we'll be good to go. All right, let's see. I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. All right, exposures are here. Let us do this. Let us do this. So we've got Luka Doncic, 13,800 today. I can make that a little bit bigger, actually. Oh, yeah, that's perfect. You guys should be able to see that easily. So we've got Luka Doncic at 13,800. We've got Jason Tatum at 11,600. Then we drop down to $9,800 Jaylen Brown, $8,800 Kyrie, and the guy that I think is probably the most unplayable dude today, $8K Kristaps Porzingis. I want him to play really bad because I will not play him today. And I would rather just know that, in my opinion, 20% of lineups are just dead. I'm nervous about the injury. I'm unquestionably nervous about his minutes upside, even if he plays. At 8K, easy. Easy. I just don't want it. I just don't want it. So if we're looking at captains to start, well, actually, you know what? Let's just talk about the series in general and the things that I think are going to be a little bit different today. We saw Dante Exum get a couple extra minutes in game 2. You can see the way that I'm looking at this one. in comparison to where the field is, at least to start the day. We're projecting 18% ownership to Jaden Hardy. We're projecting no ownership to Dante Exum. I think that Exum is ahead of Hardy. I think Exum is absolutely playing more minutes than Hardy. I would not be surprised at all if Jaden Hardy doesn't play at all today. I want to get to Exum. So for me, and I expect what's happening here to change, but it doesn't change my thoughts of who's playing. Obviously, if Jaden Hardy is going to be 18% owned and Exum is essentially unowned, I like Exum by miles. But I prefer Exum to Hardy regardless of what that ownership starts to say, because I just don't think that Jaden Hardy is going to be a part of this series moving forward. Maxi's just in a tricky spot. Like, they're not really in a position to not play him. I think, like, by default, he's playing 12 to 14 minutes at a minimum. So you could always talk about him, but his shoulder is clearly not right. It feels like that guy is ripe for surgery when the season is over. The Boston side, unless Porzingis is out, I don't really think that there's anything too crazy to talk about here, because they're not changing their rotation. Now, maybe Porzingis plays a couple less minutes and you get 4 out of Luke Cornett, or 4 out of Xavier Tillman, or 4 out of O'Shea Brissett. That's the real problem here with any sort of limitation to Kristaps Porzingis. We don't really know what Boston is going to do. I wouldn't be surprised at all if O'Shea Brissett is the first choice if you're trying to replace a large chunk of Porzingis minutes and you want to just continue to maintain having that 5-out setup for Boston. I mean, Jason Tatum has been guarding the center the entire time. He's basic on defense. He's basically playing the 5 in this series. If that's going to be the case, then you can get by with O'Shea Brissett and keeping that 5 out on that side. So if Porzingis is in, I don't really think we're in any position to really be projecting any minutes to whoever could be that third big, whether it's Brissett or Cornett or Tillman. The only way that I think that matters from anything actionable is if Porzingis ends up out, which I just really, really don't want to happen. I mean, if I'm Boston, there's no chance I'm ruling Kristaps Porzingis out. The only way that you rule out Kristaps Porzingis is if he's just 100 million% done. I'm dressing him today and just putting him out there. And if you don't put him on the floor, that's okay. The active players are meaningless in the NBA. There's no incentive for Boston to rule out Kristaps Porzingis because they don't need that extra spot on the end of the bench. They could rule out anybody in that scenario. But you dress him and you have him on the bench so that Dallas is a bit of that. And then when he doesn't sub in the first quarter or something, he could be a little bit different. But I just don't see the appeal of not dressing him. There's no downside. Luke Cornett also dresses and doesn't play. But nobody's mad about that. You can hide an injury if they're active. So Kristaps Porzingis, if he is active, I just don't see the path to wanting to play him. Even in a perfect world, if he's going to play like 26 minutes, he's still 8K. It takes a good game. Like, you have to have a better than average game to be one of those 6 best scorers. So that not only do you need him to be healthy, playing, and play well, or any one of those things is a problem, and he's just simply not in the optimal. So I'm dodging Porzingis big time. I desperately want him to be active. I think the next most interesting piece to talk about in this game is, what is Dallas doing at center today? And that, my friends, is the ultimate disaster. Awful. Because this is now incredibly tricky. Derek Lively has been really bad for the first 2 games of this series. Really bad. Better in game 2, sort of. But Negative 2.2 EPM in game 1. Negative 5.4 in game 2. It has not been going well for Lively. Now, Lively played 19 minutes in this last game. Boston obviously up a bunch. They went to more Gafford. He got to just shy of 23 minutes. He had a much better second half. Scored 4 points in the third quarter. Scored 7 with a bunch of rebounds in the fourth quarter as Dallas was trying their best to get back into it. The minutes between Gafford and Lively are really, really concerning to me. I'm betting on Gafford. Gafford is in at 5K. He's 25% owned. I have 50. Lively is in at 4,400. He's 40% owned. I have 8. Now, I do think there's something. It is a thing. Now, people will overreact to this information and overreact to the way that it exists. But generally speaking, you do see mild increases in performance rates in home games in comparison to road games. That's just common knowledge. That's not like anything interesting. But you do, in theory, anticipate Derek Lively, if he's going to be better at home than he was on the road. Does it feel good to roll the dice on these guys? No. But if Derek Lively is going to be 40% owned at utility and Daniel Gafford is 25, given everything that's happened in this series so far, it's hard to not want to go to Gafford and spend $600 more. So this is the first question I want to pose to chat. Where do you guys land on this Gafford Lively duo? Do you think Lively recovers? Do you think it's still just a balancing act between the two? I'm curious. And then we do have to think about the possibility that if Kristaps Porzingis simply doesn't play, that pretty dramatically changes things for Dallas. But I see Gafford as the move. Like, even if those guys were equal in ownership, I prefer Daniel Gafford to Derek Lively. So, Steven, I'm with you there. If Lively's playing well, he's just going to play more minutes. Without question, that's going to happen. Now, in that case, here's what I really think. I think that the Derek Lively ownership is going to come down a little bit, and we might see the Gafford ownership. Like, if this goes to 33 and 29, then I probably have like 18 of Lively and 40 of Gafford. And then everything just looks a little bit different. I will want to pinch those guys a little bit more, but I am leaning Gafford over Lively. And then for Maxey, I'm sort of just happy to be around the field because he just gets a natural benefit. Like, if anything happens to Gafford, you can see a couple extra minutes for Kleber. If anything's happening to Lively, you can see a couple extra minutes for Kleber. He has the most natural path to just grab a couple extra minutes, and I think he has to be out there anyway. I don't think he's a great play because of how bad he is on a per minute basis, but I think he's very useful filler salary because all it takes is like he knocks down the 2 threes that he takes, and all of a sudden everything's different from value plays. It's a real... When push comes to shove, though, for those 3 guys, we're really talking about who's playing the best early in the game. Like, whoever's playing the best in the first half is probably playing the most minutes of the trio in the second half. And that's all you could do is sort of put yourself in the best possible situation there. Yeah, the $600 salary difference between the two doesn't matter at all. Not to me. Because there's a lot of stuff on this slate where I don't even think it's all that interesting to talk about. Like, Luka's 20% owned at the captain. Tatum is basically there too. I'm under the field on both. I'm massively over the field on Luka and Tatum in utility. I have 76% of Luka. I have 68% of Tatum. I obviously want to have a lot of those guys. I don't think there's much that we could talk about for Luka, for Tatum, for Kyrie. Like, these are just guys that you play. You don't fade the best players. You might fade them in a spot. Like, I might be light on Luka at captain, but I have 15% more exposure to Luka Doncic than the field does. I have 15% more exposure than the field does on Jason Tatum. I'm basically neutral to Kyrie. He's in half my stuff. I'm dead neutral to Jaylen Brown. He's in 40% of my stuff. Those guys aren't really worth talking about because you can't really make cases for 38-minute dudes to just be like, no, I'm not playing him. The guys that you have to take your, like, this makes me nervous stands are the Gaffords, the Liveleys, the Josh Greens, the Peyton Pritchards, the Sam Hausers. Those are the guys that make stands feel a little bit different. Everybody's playing the best players. You just got to do that. So as I look at the rest of this game, I don't have a ton of interest in Peyton Pritchard. He's just simply not as involved in this series. And him going to Dallas, this feels like a spot where Luka would pick on him a little bit more. I'm much more of a Sam Hauser guy than a Peyton Pritchard guy during this series. I don't have much of Pritchard. I really don't have that much of Hauser either. But a lot of that is just being caused by the Dante Exum pay down. But for Boston, I find Boston to be like the least interesting team to talk about in a showdown slate because their rotation, barring the Kristaps Porzingis injury, their rotation isn't moving. Like, Sam Hauser's not going to suddenly play 40 minutes unless there's injuries. Like, you kind of just know what you get out of Boston and you want pieces of everything. I'm going right back to Drew at captain. That seems to be going well in this series. I think that the real ambiguity exists in Dallas more than anything else. Now, Jose said, what do I think about Luka's defense? I don't know what you mean. I mean, it's solid. He's an average defender for his position, for given what he does offensively. I don't know. It's not Dallas's problem, that's for sure. One guy I haven't talked about yet is Derek Jones Jr. 4,600 in the utility spot. He's 25% owned. I got about 38%. Just looks like a solid mid-tier play. Minutes should be there without any issue. I don't really see what they could possibly do to ruin him playing 32 minutes. So for me right now, happy to get to Derek Jones Jr. All of my major stands are happening around Gafford, Lively, in this case, Dante Exum, but I think that works itself out. And then I am incredibly light on Al Horford. And I'll be honest, this is the only spot of everything that I have where I'm just like, I wonder why that's happening. Horford's 5,600 at utility and projected for 36% ownership. I have 12. Now, I do have 8% of him at the captain spot. Something is happening here that's limiting my Al Horford a little bit. Because I do like Horford, and the Porzingis status certainly plays into Al Horford's hands of getting more minutes. Look, Boston only needs to win 2 more games. You can afford to throw more minutes at Al Horford at this point in time. He's going to have plenty of time to rest in July and August. But he is the one guy that I have a little bit less of, which is something that I would probably manually bump a little bit. Like, if I had him at 12 and it was 30, he's projected 36, I'd probably bump him up to 18 or 20 to feel a little bit better. And then I continue to get to PJ Washington at the captain spot, and I hate it. He's my most exposed captain right now. He's projected for 7%. If the threes ever start falling, like, he's a very live captain, especially if you get a day where Luka's still Luka and Jason Tatum performs, because then you can get those double pay-ups, and then paying down at captain means a little bit more. But I've had a lot of PJ Washington for the first 2 games. That really hasn't been the greatest thing in the world. I'm going right back to him at the captain spot today. A little bit lighter at utility, but overall, I'm basically neutral to PJ Washington. What are you guys liking today? And if you say like Luka, just save that one. Who are you guys seeing as the guys that benefit the most in this game? Like, After watching games 1 and 2, if you're like, oh, I think Derek Jones Jr. is in for that game today. Like, that's the kind of question I'm asking. We don't talking about Tatum and Luka is useless. Kyrie captain or Brown? Yeah, I mean, like, do I have some Kyrie at captain? Yeah, but if he's already 19%, I think he's pretty properly owned. And then Jaylen Brown's just been great so far in this series. Happy to have some. A little surprised that I'm not getting more of Jaylen Brown, but if it's coming at the expense of Jason Tatum, I can kind of get behind that. Actually, like Gafford at the captain spot. Man, that's risky. That's risky. I see the path. Like, if you're not a believer in Derek Lively in this series and you think that Gafford can get to like 24 or 25 minutes, there's a move that like that. I can see that path. But all it takes is Derek Lively playing decent in the first half, especially if like Porzingis is out and everything's blown up there. So here's the thing with Einsteinium about that. If Porzingis is compromised, then Derek Jones Jr. would be my answer. He'll get anything he wants at the rim. So that I actually disagree with. I think the one thing that, like, if Kristaps Porzingis is able to play, we're talking about a guy that doesn't switch out on the perimeter. He's pretty constantly in drop coverage. That's the one thing that he's going to still be able to do is just be a tall ass dude with his hands up at the rim. That's the one, like, he's going to continue to be able to be in a drop and pre-switch out of any sort of pick and roll coverage that they try to pull him into. The defensive part of rim protection is my least worrisome piece of Kristaps Porzingis. Now, it's offensively that I'm worried about Porzingis. How well can he move? Can he get loose on a pick and pop? Is his lateral motion a problem? Because we got to remember, it doesn't matter if Kristaps Porzingis gets in foul trouble. Like, if Dallas is going to get to the rim and Kristaps Porzingis is playing, if you're only earmarking Kristaps Porzingis for 24 minutes, you can make up for a little I don't feel great by just being a bit more aggressive. If Kristaps Porzingis has 5 fouls in his 24 minutes, it changes nothing about this game. If you're relying on Kristaps Porzingis to play 34, 36 minutes, that's more concerning to me. If he's able to just do whatever he wants to in his run and any rim protection you get is best, then he can be more aggressive, and that doesn't matter much. Do I think Brown is going to keep playing as good? Yeah, he's good. The Gafford captain one, man. I get where you guys are going there, but whoo, boy, does that scare me. Let's see what we got in the stochastic sims. Let's see. Do I have a highly ranked Daniel Gafford lineup? At captain, that is. Okay. So I'm playing 50 lineups in the big contest. The highest ranked Gafford captain lineup that I have is ranked 82nd. That's Gafford captain, Brown, Tatum, Kyrie, Derek White, Derek Jones Jr. So no Luka in that scenario. But anyway, at the captain spot, coming out of the stochastic sims, we have 26% exposure to go into Luka Doncic. That makes quite a bit of sense to me. So, 20% ownership to Jason Tatum makes sense to me. Next guys are Kyrie, Jaylen Brown, Derek White. There's nothing to even look into in terms of captains coming out of the stochastic sims. I will say Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Luka Doncic, all with the best sim player ROIs. But the captain exposure coming out of the stochastic sim is basically just matching talent. So I don't know. We did get one Daniel Gafford lineup. Now, if we look at the flex, 58% to Al Horford. So that's where we're differing right out of the gate. I was very low on Al Horford. Stochastic sims are very high on Al Horford. I tend to actually lean a little bit more towards the stochastic sims, if we're being honest. Now, we have Al Horford projected for 24.6 fantasy points. I actually have him at 24. So I'm not all that concerned with my projection. Very curious to see why he's not showing up. You'll also see in the exposures PJ Washington, 42% at the utility. Then you get into the normal guys, but Big Stan Daniel Gafford still getting lively, though, which I think is very interesting. Getting Jaden Hardy, not getting Exum. Again, I think that will change a lot as we get closer to lock. 24% of Porzingis. So with him in, we are seeing a little bit of positive leverage on Porzingis coming out of the stochastic sims. I don't necessarily feel the same way. The top ROI lineup out of the sim so far: Drew Holiday, captain; Al Horford, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Josh Green, Luka Doncic. What kind of questions you guys got for me? We got a lot of shows coming up today. MLB strategy show coming up at noon with Laffy and Bellman. MLB live before lock tonight at 6 p.m. You get Greg and Bellman. I'll be back at 8 o'clock tonight. 30-minute NBA live before lock with Eric Lindquist. And then we are live exclusively on Playback, playback.tv/stochastic. We watch the game. We all see the exact same stream at the exact same time. We can give out 50 VIP passes so that you guys can watch along with us. We'll sweat out the first half, sweat bets, sweat DFS, just talk shop, all of that stuff. Now, I want you guys to see all of that stuff. So join us on all of our live coverage. The other thing that you should do, you see it at the top of the screen. Now you're going to see it all over the screen. $14.95 for a week of PGA Sims Max as long as you use the promo code Pinehurst. Now, this code will work through Sunday, but you're going to want to do it today, probably, at the very least tomorrow. The U.S. Open is this week. It's the second biggest golf tournament of the year. We're letting our Sims be on sale for $15. You get it for the main slates. You get it for all of the showdown slates. You can get a lot of golf over your weekend, and you can sign up and get it for $15. If you wanted to see what our Sims process is like, and you're a bit of a golf fan, take a shot for the U.S. Open at $15. Why not? Come join us. It's right here for. I can't wait to use it. I will absolutely be playing the U.S. Open. I want to watch some golf this weekend. There's no reason not to. And being able to do that and having our Sims on the back end to set all of your lineups up, it's perfect. It looks exactly like everything for the NBA side, only we're talking about golfers. $14.95. All you have to do is click the link in the description, or when checking out for a week of PGA Sims Max, use the promo code Pinehurst. How much does PJ need to pay off at captain? Depends how much Luka and Tatum score. Yeah, the course is nuts. I'm kind of mad at myself for not getting tickets to go for at least a day. It's relatively close to me. I could be there pretty quick. What else are we missing here, guys? What haven't we talked about that you guys want to touch on? Because obviously we have the Kristaps Porzingis Q tag hanging in the balance. We've got the center dynamic for Dallas. We've got the Exum, Hardy, Josh Green, Tim Hardaway Jr. conundrum that exists. Look, they're down 2-0 and they're heading home. Traditionally, you could see a change you weren't expecting. Like, you could see Tim Hardaway be the second guy off the bench today, and it wouldn't shock me at all. I personally think Exum is the next man up, but we could see it be different. If KP does not play, who gets the usage bump? Tatum. What else do we need here, folks? Let's see if there's any good bets on OddsShopper right now. Anything good on the NBA side? Yeah, not a lot of value. Under 3.5 threes for Luka is plus 130 at DraftKings. That's the best thing you could find right now on the NBA end. Antoine, the Mavs rotation should be cut down tonight. So here's why I disagree with you. In theory, that's true. The problem with Dallas is that all of their guys that aren't Luka and Kyrie are kind of just different versions. Like everybody's missing a skill to make them like unassailable. I don't think they cut their rotation because everybody's so similar, like 6 through 9, that I don't think they're like they could do it, but I don't think it's something that bores out over like choice. Like they don't really have any separation between Exum, Hardy, with Gafford, Lively, Kleber. Like they're not really in any position to cut that rotation because all those guys are the same. All you're doing is sort of just giving more minutes to the same guy. In theory, you would do it. You would get rid of like that one dude at the end who was just like, okay, that's not his series. I don't think Dallas is really in any position. I think they're more likely to wiggle their rotation than like shorten it all. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, there's never been a scenario where it was like, oh, we got to cut Josh Green's minutes so Derek Jones Jr. can play more. Like, that's just... Look, Antoine, I'm with you. In a different scenario, I would completely agree, and I would expect them to go down to 7. But I just don't know if it... Like, I think they're in a position where they kind of just want to put people out there, find... Like, I could see them cutting it in the second half. But I think they just want to get people out there to see how they respond that day. And then, like, if it works, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Just because of how those guys look. Like, if Jaden Hardy goes out in the first half and has a 4-minute rotation, misses 2 shots, gets beat on defense twice, then I think he's very live to, like, just get cut in the second half. But I don't think they can do that immediately. Who do I like more, Gafford or Derek Jones Jr.? Gafford. I think there's a bigger ceiling to Gafford. Just given Lively's play. Yeah, the Mavs aren't making threes. It's almost like PJ Washington's a shitty three-point shooter and nobody ever wants to listen to me. They just keep want to slog him off because the Mavs traded for him and they made the finals. I don't know about Tim Hardaway should get more opportunities, but Tim Hardaway Jr. can get more opportunities. The problem with Tim Hardaway Jr. is that he sucks. Negative 0.3 plus minus this year, negative 1.6 defensively, 30th percentile true shooting, below average 3-point shooting, in 2 out of the last 3 years. He doesn't really get assists. He doesn't get any steals, 14th percentile steal rate, 2nd percentile block rate. He can't rebound, 3rd percentile offensive rebounding rate. He's a below average defensive rebounder. Tim Hardaway Jr. doesn't do a damn thing on the court worth a shit. So they shouldn't play him. But is that any different than everything that I just said about Jaden Hardy or Dante Exum? Probably not. Probably not. Like, he's just not good. I mean, he never really was any good, but he's extra not good now. So that's where we're looking. I have dead even captain exposure, 50-50 Dallas and Boston. But utility, I have all of the Dallas. Now, on paper, that's exactly what I want. If I'm going to be getting a lot more utility plays for a team, I definitely want it to be the team down 2-0 and now playing at home. I want Dallas's bench and lesser dudes. This is playing out exactly how I would want my exposures. Now, if we're lucky, Boston just wins today, Dallas packs it in, and this stuff just ends. But, you know, Dallas picks up a win here, and everything feels a little bit different. Is there anything else you guys want me to look at before we dip on out of here? I think we've talked about everybody that's real, anybody that's relevant. On Live Before Lock, we'll obviously have a lot more information, a lot of updated data. We'll see how this ownership has changed a little bit. But right now, my priorities are getting to as much Luka Doncic and Jason Tatum as I can in the aggregate, playing PJ Washington and Drew Holiday at the captain spot, and taking a stand on Daniel Gafford over Derek Lively. Run it with no Porzingis. That's not something that I can do quickly. That would take 20 minutes to set up. I would have to reproject all of the teams, and then the ownership would be wrong. I don't think Dallas is live to win this series in any way, barring injuries. They're down 2-0 against... Look, no matter what people want to say, on paper, they're down 2-0 against one of the best teams statistically that's existed. This is a high level team. They beat the shit out of everybody during the regular season. They're beating the shit out of everybody in the playoffs from a point differential standpoint. I don't think Dallas has a prayer unless something happens. Same answer, Couch Critics. Same answer. Would I bet alt unders for Porzingis? If he's in, yeah, I would. If they post them, yeah, I probably would. Yeah, Boston Celtics plus 10.7 net rating in the playoffs so far. Dallas is at plus 3.4. These teams just aren't the same. Would I rate this Boston team over the 73-9 Warriors? No. No, I would not. But, I mean, these guys have been absolutely amazing the entire time. Yeah, I mean, I think we all would have preferred a Nuggets finals here, Trong. Well, except for Dallas fans. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. We're going to need all of this news. Obviously, the Porzingis news hangs in the balance. If he gets ruled out, everything changes for Boston. Rates change across the board. Minutes for Al Horford change. We have to project a new dude into this rotation at least a little bit. It probably makes Sam Hauser look a little bit better because the more that they want to play Tatum big, Sam Hauser is a natural guy to come onto the floor a little bit more. So everything changes on this slate if Kristaps Porzingis gets ruled out. We will know that later today. Later today. But for now, I'm going to get on out of here. Alrighty, guys. Thank you for being here. Another NBA strategy show in the books. This could be the second to last one. We might only have one more of these left. When's the next game? Saturday? If it's Saturday, then we might not have any of these left. Oh, it's Friday. Nice. Good shit. All right. So Friday morning, I'll see you guys here bright and early, 10 o'clock in the morning. And then the next one, game 5's on Monday. So we don't even have to worry about that. We're getting at least one more of these bad boys, and I will see you guys on Monday. This was the NBA Strategy Show.